the movie I'm talking about is Fly Me to the Moon. Now, this movie is in theaters right now. Let me pull it up here. It stars Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum of Magic Mike fame. And basically in a romantic comedy, in a action movie about the space race, particularly about getting America on the moon with the Apollo 11 program. I was kind of hesitant to watch this movie at first because I had seen a trailer for it. And if you hadn't seen the trailer kind of goes into the Apollo 11 program, but then it's a fictionalized drama around two characters here, specifically Scarlett Johansson being hired to fake the moon landing just in case the real one didn't succeed in real life. Obviously not true. Moon landing, that they're kind of playing into that conspiracy a little bit of the moon landing being fake, but they serialized this drama and made it into kind of a good comedy between, a good back and forth between these two characters that are very, very different. Scarlett Johansson being a marketing kind of mastermind from New York City, and Cole, played by who's the flight director, played by Channing Tatum, is a very hard-nosed engineer just trying to get this thing off the ground, while America is slowly on the fence about how much more money is going to be put into this program. Immediately upon watching this, one, it's an engaging film. It's a really, really good film. My mind immediately went to someone in production read the book Marketing the Moon, which is a famous book. I got to get the author, but it's a famous book that kind of goes into the advertisements behind the Apollo 11 program and how during the 60s, everything had like a space theme to it to kind of get people excited for this launch, to get people excited for the space program, to get space into the zeitgeist, right? Especially after some of the failed attempts, and the most famous one being the Apollo 1 program, which kind of tragically ended with 3 people losing their lives due to a fire, and they were trapped inside of the vessel. Excitement wasn't exactly at an all-time high, right? And so in this movie, Scarlett Johansson comes in as a hired gun, essentially, by Woody Harrelson, who plays this kind of Nixon-esque, agent who finds her, realizes how good she is at doing this kind of stuff, and hires her to basically not only drum up support for the program, but ultimately to fake it just in case it doesn't work or it doesn't happen, so that America still feels that kind of pride. Now, I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie. Obviously, we know what happens in real life. I think it's a really creative way of taking two major themes, right, that have dominated this story for ages. Not only the legend of faking the moon landing, but also the moon landing, and giving it highlight and smashing them together into a drama about, what if this happened, and it got twisted over the years, and this is actually what ended up going on. It's a really, really cool little drama. It really felt not only like a good retelling of history, but it's just lighthearted too. It's not an embarrassing flick. It's something you can watch with everybody. I think because it has space and there's a happy ending at the end, it feels like a summer film. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it feels like a good time when you watch this thing. I also think there's a lot of documentaries that do this, if not do the actual story better justice than this particular movie. But the comedy that it kind of puts in, and the lightheartedness of course, the things that they have to kind of go through in order to make this thing happen. it's such a nice. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say basically it's a nice setting for a drama. This particular point in time, because not only it's America at its best, it's America trying to make something happen. It's a program that is still essentially in its infancy at this point, and you want to see that triumph. And especially during these times that we're in right now, we're in an election year, things are divisive. It is kind of nice to see on screen a version of America that had problems, but they are overcoming them and they're being successful. I think it is the feel-good movie of the year in that sense. The other thing is they mention a number of things. They mention a number of things that kind of go back to that Marketing the Moon book, right? They mentioned Ogilvy, which was a huge agency, a marketing agency at the time and still is. And they mentioned a lot of the space race being on things that you wouldn't essentially associate with the space race, including like Rice Krispies. You can see in the trailer, Tang. This is kind of excitement for sci-fi. You know, during the 60s, Star Trek was being broadcast, right? This whole idea of what's beyond, right? After this, you're talking about, maybe 7 years after you have Star Wars coming out in like the late 70s, right? 8 years after the moon landing in 69, right? This excitement of what is beyond seems to have punctured the general zeitgeist of the culture, which is really, really a cool thing. And I can't think of anything else aside from, maybe like a Beatlemania, right? Which they do mention in this show, that really punctures the American zeitgeist quite like the space race did, quite like this mini Cold War between two countries trying to get to the moon. And that's kind of something that I feel like it's missing, or in this kind of age of constant new story. Nothing lives long enough in our culture to puncture the zeitgeist and take over quite like this did, with the exception of maybe like Taylor Swift, right? I mean, that's maybe the closest analogous you can have this day and age with this movie. But again, this movie, Fly Me to the Moon, I believe the screenwriter is Rose Gilroy, who directly, I just found out right before the show, directly referenced marketing for the moon for this movie. Go see it, because it is a kind of a sleeper hit. I think it's a nice film to watch. It's something that's not hero based, and I feel like the movies have been quite dry over the last couple years. A couple months, and there hasn't been that much to see or that something that exciting. So to see this one kind of come out and be successful and also be really good, especially considering that according to some sources online, there were some directorial changes in this movie that could have been a death sentence for a movie. Because if you don't have like one clear direction, sometimes it's not going to be a good product in the end. This ends up being a great one. I also would look out for, obviously it's called Fly Me to the Moon. There's going to be some Sinatra references in there. And they do one at the very end, which is a very cute bit of filming that you should definitely check out. Also, all the footage, having dug up a lot of stuff for the Apollo program in the past, for VideoWorks and video projects and whatever, it's cool to see that footage of Apollo 11 interspliced with what they did. Not only does the footage look great, but it's nice to see different angles that you don't necessarily see all the time of that mission. And it kind of makes you think too, as just a person who is, obviously watching a fictionalized movie and fictionalized depiction of that landing. It really makes you impressed that they were able to send 3 people to the moon in what looks like a Hasbro toy. It is quite impressive. I mean, that vessel, Apollo 11, that thing is a engineering feat, especially at the time. But now thinking about SpaceX and thinking about Bezos's company and thinking about NASA now, it just looks so simple and rudimentary. And the fact that they were able to have it do so much is not only just a testament to their engineering, but it's just really, really impressive. And it makes me miss that there's not more excitement over some of these explorations into space, right? That there's not that kind of feeling in today's culture, despite seeing some very, very impressive things, like these self-landing rockets, for reusable use, right? I think, knowing some of the history of NASA, I think they've definitely had major successes and major failures. But to see some of that stuff come back, I think would be not only a nice distraction for a country that definitely needs a distraction. So with that, Fly Me to the Moon is in theaters this July. It's an Apple original production, so it will probably be on Apple Plus at some point. Hopefully Netflix too as well, coming later on down the chute, or to any other streaming service. But go see this movie. If you're not interested in superhero movies, this is the one to go to. Go support this movie. It's a fun movie, and more movies like this should be made.